God, One Piece chapter 914, yo, I can't believe this right here, man. So let me get this straight. So not only is Law getting ready to intervene because it looks like Luffy is about to just bust up this fire-ass plan that Law and Kinemon had came up with, but the other thing is, it's like the chick that was patching up Zoro, she's a samurai. Oh shit, dude, yo, this is getting good, man. This is getting good. Like, I was expecting this to be like one of those chapters where it was a little bit of a lore dump, and that wasn't actually the case for what's actually going on here. So what we find out in this chapter is that when it comes to the land of Wano, things are a lot worse off than we could have ever imagined. So the fact is that, you know, you got this situation where all across the land of Wano, you got children who are just starving, villagers who are starving all over the place. They only really get to eat in places like the land of the leftover scraps. They really only get a chance to eat because they're eating the rotten food that is being sold to them by those government officials. They're eating the leftover scraps that they don't actually finish themselves. And what's so crazy is that Luffy has a line where he says, like, this isn't right. You know, little kids should be able to eat a decent meal, which I agree with. And I think Luffy is thinking back to the time that he had, I think it was in Dai Dai Village, where Luffy, when it was he and it was Sabo and it was Ace and they're growing up, you know, people there weren't necessarily the most well off. And I think Luffy, for a moment, Luffy was starting to get pissed off, man. And what I like here is that Luffy says the most Luffyest thing ever. He says, like, you know, little kids can't handle eating poison until they get grown. It's just like, no, you fucking dumbass, no they can't. But Luffy's heart is in the right place here, and you know, you just see the wheels turning in Luffy's head, where Luffy's just like, yo, okay, it's time for me to step in. It's time for me to step in and make things right. And it's one of those things to where Luffy manages to always do the right thing, even though I don't think Luffy consciously is trying to do the right thing. I think that, you know, you see some of Garp's influence in him coming out. You know, Garp was a great Marine man, but Luffy, as we all know, Luffy is a pirate. And where that difference comes in is Luffy could never really be a Marine. Even though Luffy does do the right stuff, he could never really be a Marine because Luffy goes about things in a different manner and he's too much of a free spirit. And yet at the same time, chapters like this show you that Luffy has a stronger moral compass than damn near everybody in the Marines, and Luffy's actually doing more when you look at his whole body of work, how he's gone from island to island changing people's lives. Luffy has done more as a pirate than the Marines have done. And so I like those little contrasts that you see, how Oda just sprinkles everything in there. And what I really like here is how when they start talking about the way that things go on the country, you know, what's so crazy is that, you know, they start talking about the Oden Castle and how 20 years ago the land of Wano was ruled by the Kozuki family, but things have changed since then. And what I like here is the fact that, you know, they talk about how there was a large farm that was at the base of the mountain, how Lord Odin had created the farm to feed people, give them healthy food. And the thing that happens is everything simply got changed at this point. And what you find out in this chapter here is that because of what's going on, because of Batman who ate the bat smile fruit, you know, you find out that he's got hearing that can hear 6 times better than any other person's. And Oda's doing some very interesting messaging here because he talks about the fact that, you know, hey, in our land, we don't take kindly to people criticizing the Shogun and talking dangerous to him. Talk like that is going to be seen as rebellious. And it just really makes you look at the way that we have our own freedoms here in America, to where, you know, we don't like the president or we don't like the person that is running against the president, and we can simply criticize them all day long. We can do that, no problems. There's no fear of somebody knocking down your door and hauling you off into jail, putting you in a camp or anything, despite what any of the hate mongering, fear mongering, whatever term you want to use, despite what all that is, that's not what goes on here in our country. And it really makes you realize that, like, if you were in a place like Wano, if you did that, you would be killed. And so people are living in a true authoritarian state. People are living in a place of fear. And what I like here is that, you know, there's a recipe here for something really big to happen, because you're in a situation where there are people starving, there are people who have been downtrodden and kind of thrown out in the middle of nowhere. You have an oppressive force, and then you have these outsiders and Luffy and Law and all the Straw Hats who are coming here to this island. This is like a powder keg that is about to go off. And we've seen this a couple of times in One Piece so far, to where when Luffy shows up and Luffy starts to light things up, it becomes a huge explosion. And in particular, if you go back to, if I'm not mistaken, it was Dai Dai Village. If you go back there, when Luffy was growing up, you had that whole thing with the class system where you had the celestial dragons, if I'm not mistaken, who are ordering that part of that whole area just get completely exterminated. And that's when Dragon showed up and took Sabo into the crew, and you had that class system going on there. And I think there's a similar type situation here, to where it's not necessarily a class problem, but there are people who are under oppression and they're getting ready to fight back. And we saw this with Dressrosa, where there were people who were attempting to fight back. And so I think that Oda is sending a very clear message here that, you know, once you got to the New World, it was going to be building towards this. Just how in the Grand Line portion of the story, where Luffy's going on all his adventures and you see somewhat civil wars like how you had in Alabasta, and everything kind of culminated as the huge changing point of the whole Marineford saga. I think that you're getting a similar thing here, to where it's clear signs that Oda is saying, like, look, it's about to get nasty here. And it makes sense. Just as Marineford was the transition to this next part of the story, I think that you're going to get a similar situation here. I think Wano, because of how it's been built up, I think Wano is going to be that next transition to this third act of the One Piece story. And what's so fascinating about this is the fact that, you know, Luffy understands that he's at a critical juncture on his pirate journey, but at the same time, Luffy, once he realizes that things are going to hell in a handbasket very quickly, you got Zoro, he's blocking all the attacks, and they're starting to get their guard broken. Just how earlier on, you know, Luffy's like, my name's Monkey D, and the girl says, look, I already know you guys are from across the sea. You ain't gotta lie to me. I totally understand. I just got here my damn self. And now you're in a situation where they're asking questions and they're saying, like, look, you know, Batman's like, look, you know, Zoro, I'm guessing you're the one who's been stealing the food from the farm. Isn't that right? You've been stealing food. You've been the one going into supplies. Doesn't call Zoro out by name, but he says, a one-eyed Ronin. I've seen your picture on the poster board. So again, they're starting to get made, and it's one of those things where they're getting made so early on in the story. You can tell that Oda is definitely getting ready to ramp things up, and he's doing so for a reason. And what I like in this moment is when Tama gets kidnapped, you know, they go full steam ahead, and Luffy doesn't even hesitate to use this devil fruit ability as far as for the stretching. That way he and Zoro can get on the back of that animal that they're riding on. I thought that was cool. I thought that was cool how Oda is just like, look, let's go full steam ahead. And I like how, again, how Law is looking at the situation once he gets the update, and Law says this idiot Luffy is going to cause nothing but trouble. So my question to you guys is, on a scale from 1 to 10, how important would you say that this Wano arc is? Do you think that this is the critical turning point for the New World portion of the story? Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.